Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tea Time. Now, I haven't made a Tea Time video in a while, and I haven't made a patch video in a while, and I want to address that first. The reason why I haven't been making videos on patch notes is because I'm really angry and sad about those things, and I don't think it's intelligent for me to express my opinions while I'm in a heightened emotional state. So I've sort of put off those making those videos until my sort of emotions have settled down. I can take a little bit more reasonable approach to looking at things. I still am upset about a lot of things, but I think I can discuss them in a lot more realistic and meaningful way than if I just got on and just ranted my head off and vented out my anger. If you want to see me angry, go ahead and watch me on stream. It is 100% real Jack all the time. If I get pissed off at something, that will inevitably come out on the stream. But for the more sort of nuanced, detailed look at things, this is where you look. So let's get into the patch notes. The first section is entitled Big Changes on the Way. The entire section then goes on to explain how big changes are not on the way and how the big changes that have already been made are going to stay and be polished and adjusted, and no new big changes will be coming. Except for one line out of the entire section says, we clearly are making big changes and will continue to do so. Other than that, the rest of it's basically saying, no, we're not making big changes. So a little bit confusing language there, but I'm going to take the majority of the tone of that as sort of, PR speak for, we like the way that the economy is. We're not going to be making any big changes to the economy. We like the 12-worker start. We're not going to be making any changes to the 12-worker start. Any of the big changes from Heart of the Swarm to Legacy of the Void that have already been made and are being tweaked currently are going to be tweaked and not replaced. I really don't think at this point in time. It's sad to say. I really hope I'm wrong. Whenever I say things like this, I hope that I'm wrong. But I think that there is almost no chance that Blizzard will change the saturation point. The efficient saturation point, which is currently at 16, drops to 99% efficiency at 17 and 18, then significantly drops off after that. Which is, in my opinion and the opinion of many other people, the cause of the 3-base cap and the variety of other issues that permeate through the entire game, including super turtley play, not having a proper response and things like that. So it's really sad to hear this kind of tone coming out from Blizzard. I hope that I'm wrong. Like I said before, I hope that I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And I think that we clearly are and will continue to do so. Line is sort of that tiny little bit of hope that I'm attempting to cling on to, but it's not very tangible. It doesn't feel very real to me. And it's just sort of unfortunate. This is probably the main thing that sort of got me sort of riled up when I first read these patch notes. Moving on to cooler things. Archon mode update. So they're going to add a create control group that is permeating through both of the players. So I can use the create control group function that creates a control group for me and make sure that my ally does not have those units, does not have any of those units at all in their control group. So that's a really, really smart way to do things. I know I've been playing a lot of Archon mode with my buddies, and that is going to be a really useful tool to have. So nice little small adjustment there. And hopefully it's bindable. That's the main thing for me, right? Because I use all custom hotkeys. So the fact that it's automatically bound to Alt plus number, if those are not rebindable hotkey commands, I'll just basically not be using it. And I assume for the launch of the full game, they will be fully released. But we're still having some hotkey issues. Anyway, like Hold Fire on Lurker is not hotkeyable, and anything on the Liberator is you can't change the hotkeys on it. So hopefully those will be addressed in the next patch, along with these more major changes. The minimap's getting improved, and it's not the old minimap improvement where it's like, oh wait, I can't see my base whenever I spawn on Echo. Doesn't this suck? It's like, oh, okay, all right. We fixed that problem. That problem is fixed. Great. Red players can now see their own bases. Excellent. And the new moves that they're making are also really cool. So we have displaying spawning locations. Oh my god. We've been asking for this for a long time. A lot of different ideas have come up, and I really like Blizzard's idea here. Just ping the locations where your opponent could possibly spawn on the map at the beginning of the game. Super easy to do. I feel like it's been done before. If you know of a game that did that before, I'm trying to think of the RTS or whatever it is that pinged the locations. Maybe it was like a Wings of Liberty beta thing. I don't know, but I think it's been done before. It's a great idea. I really like it. And then the other thing is just sort of more clearly defining where the destructible towers and the rocks and the watchtowers and stuff are, which was all great stuff, especially good for newer players who are trying to get into the game. So it makes it a little bit more intuitive, easier to understand. Oh, okay, it's a giant rock. There's a cool rock thing there. Great, really happy about that overall. New ghost ability is kind of, we're gonna spawns a flying drone on the enemy target, and it channels a beam. Can you attack? You can attack it. It can be killed. It has a fix. So we have another temporary unit in the mix for Terran now. Not 100% super excited about it. It doesn't feel really particularly ghosty to me. So it's sort of like, it feels like a band-aid, and it says specifically the main purpose of this ability is to help Terran bio armies better deal with the current weakness, high armor targets, aka ultralisks. I think that's what it is, right? I think it's this ghost ability is used to help bio with ultras, like having a tier 3 that can match up against the ultra, which is kind of cool, but kind of band-aidy. I'm really hoping that some of the pros, some of the really high-level players can find some cool creative uses for reducing armor by 3. It's not particularly exciting for me. I mean, I've gone through my spiel on how I feel about active abilities in StarCraft, but it's not particularly exciting. It's not going to be super visually intuitive that's what's going on, and there isn't really going to be too much counterplay going on. You have to just kill the thing that's doing the thing that you don't want it to do, but in general, not super duper interesting. Next up, we have the ghost movement speed increase. Cool. Things getting faster. Interesting. I don't know how that's going to affect TVP specifically. I feel like ghosts are going to be really, really scary. Just being able to run in, EMP, run out, stay safe. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more ghosts just with a movement speed increase. Of course, it matters how much of an increase. Is it just like does it go to 2.25 to 2.5? Because it's like, does it go up to adept speed now? It's like, okay, kind of, sort of, whatever. But it is sort of interesting. I do generally like when speed gets increased because I think that makes things kind of awesome in general. Next up, individual overlord transport upgrade. So no one gets ventral sacks. It's been a known fact. This is known. Yes, this is known. It's been known for quite a while. And the fact that the idea is if you have an overlord, you can turn it into an overseer or you can turn it into an overdropper is kind of cool to me. I don't know if that's exactly how they're going to implement it, but I think that would be a cool way to do it, right? You just sort of, you have to have a choice. And then you have this sort of, okay, for 150 minerals and 50 gas, you have a drop unit. A lot more reasonable than pay 200, and all of your overlords now drop. But it's kind of hard to balance because they also have to be really slow. So, it becomes this like, it's like when all the overlords were detectors in Brood War. It was this very sort of, it's really hard to do cloaked units against Zerg because they have detectors all over the place, So it's really cool. It's definitely a community suggestion that has gone through, which is really nice. Always nice to see the community suggestions make it through to the end stage where we get to test them, which would be very, very nice. And next up, new upgrade reducing medevac unload delay. I feel like drop play with Terrans is already super strong and really fun. I suppose you could make it stronger, but I don't know. This combined also with the being able to drop sieged tanks. I hate the fact that you can pick up and drop sieged tanks. I like the idea of being able to pick up sieged tanks and just pull them away. Being able to retreat maybe. That's kind of cool. But the idea that you can just pick them up and drop them, pick them up and drop them is just this really weird sort of takes away from the identity of the siege tank, which is something I've talked about before, so I won't go on about it. We'll move on to the next thing. The disruptor damage has been increased from, holy crap, that is a lot of damage. Many, many things will be killed by disruptors that weren't before. Death, destruction to all Protoss of the things. Not a huge fan of this particular change, just because I feel like the Disruptor is already really strong. It's already this very extreme unit, right? It's extremely expensive, and it does an extreme amount of damage. But if you screw it up, it does nothing, and it's a waste. It's very intense, right? Which is kind of cool. It's cool to have that high risk, high reward unit existing as an option. So it's cool. I like that. But this makes it even more so. So, I mean, we might be getting a little bit too extreme with the Disruptor. But, we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited to, just play around with it and mess around with it, especially in PvP now. The Ravager no longer has the armored flag. Ravager is looking too fragile right now, so we wanted to buff its survivability. Maybe reverse the nerf of the survivability? I don't know. I feel like there's this aversion to going back on a change. And I don't think it's healthy. I really don't. I think that they said, oh man, the Ravager, it's too strong right now. Let's cut the HP. It's like, oh man, it's still too strong. Okay, let's cut the range and the damage. Okay, now it's too weak. Now what do we do? Oh, we need to increase the survivability. Let's give it no more armored flag. Like, either give it the range back so it sort of comfortably sits in the back line behind the roaches, or give it the 200 hit points that it originally had back. But like this, okay, we nerf it 2 more times, 3 nerfs in total. Okay, it's weak now. We want to increase the survivability. Why not just try, push that survivability, back, play with it a little bit. I think they took, and a lot of people also had the same sort of idea that when they nerfed the damage and the range at the same time, it was very clearly too much. One or the other would have been fine. And I really think just nerfing the damage and allowing them to have that range, maybe nerf the damage even more, but the range really puts the Ravager in that comfortable, sieging kind of a unit spot where it kind of belongs there. If I were a swarm and I were, make efficient the swarm and all that kind of stuff, like I would absolutely have my unit that does this cool siege move to have a lot of range naturally with its regular attack. Maybe make the regular attack even weaker than the roaches. I don't care. But in any case, I feel like the no longer has the armored flag is like a half measure. Like they super nerfed it too much. Like they over nerfed it and now they're under buffing it. I feel like that's what's going on here. We'll find out as things go on. I really love the Ravager. It's super fun to play with. The main thing I like about the Ravager is the ability Corrosive Bile. It's really fun. The outcome of the engagement with Corrosive Bile is 100% determined by the control of both players. Timing out each Ravager shot, pulling back at the right time, moving forward at the right time, splitting, all of that kind of stuff is very, very much like Ling Bane splitting in that it's about skill and micro, and that's how sort of the engagement gets decided. I really, really like that. Moving on. Viper Parasitic Bomb now costs 125. All right, good moves, good moves. I've been enjoying the hell out of Parasitic Bomb, especially if I'm playing a ZVZ and someone says, oh, I'm going to build mutas, and I'm just like, no, no, you're not. They're all going to die. Or I'm like behind, like, oh man, they built a bunch of mutas. Like, oh, thank God they did that. Otherwise, I would have lost this ZVZ. Viper Parasitic Bomb is crazy good. It's good against so many things. They did nerf it a bit when they made interceptors non-targetable, so they did make it less of a hard counter against carriers and other big capital ships, which is kind of cool. And now there's sort of another nerf here. The stage of nerfs here is a little bit more consistent, a little bit more reasonable. It's like, okay, all right, so you can't hold, right? The important 100 to 125 change here is you can't bank up 2 Parasitic Bombs per Viper, which is a big deal, which means to do as many Parasitic Bombs in one engagement as before, you need twice the number of Vipers. So it's a big change. 25 energy, sure, but it is a pretty large change as a result, and I think that it was necessary. Parasitic Bomb was kind of insane. I've enjoyed like abusing the OP-ness of it, and now I'm sort of reserved, like, yes, okay, this is a reasonable cost. I feel okay. Armory ship upgrades cost reduced to match vehicle upgrade costs. Now this is not really a change. This is just fixing an oversight. That's what's going on here, right? So when the upgrades were combined, they took the lesser costs, which were the vehicle costs, And then when they split them up, they put them back to the way it were, where the air units were more air unit upgrades are more expensive than the ground unit upgrades, which has always been the case in StarCraft. Air unit upgrades have always been more expensive than ground unit upgrades. The fact that they're the same now is this new thing. It is a new thing, and it is a particular advantage that Terran have, which is kind of nice, very interesting, especially because they have this sort of very stringent, strict, non-flexible unit composition kind of a thing going on, especially with the tech labs as well as the reactors. So it's not just about how many of each of the 3 unit producing structures you have, it's about how many you have with tech labs and how many you have with reactors and moving them around and all that kind of stuff. So making it so that the upgrades are a little bit less pricey makes it, I think, a little bit more reasonable to make transitions into starport play in a very slight way, in a very nice way. And I kind of like that. I think it's nice. Spore crawler damage. Oh my god. So good. It's so good. It's so good. Get rid of the band-aid play, right? And this is something that we've talked about, that I talked about really earlier, where Blizzard seems to be sort of adverse. There's this aversity towards going back on a change. And whenever they do go back on a change, it's like, yes, excellent. So they're bringing it back, not all the way to before, but they're bringing it back to 15 plus 30 bio, so Mutalisk, Shredder, Extreme, to 15 plus 15. So big decrease there. And as a result, Mutalisk will be a little bit more reasonable in ZVZ. And that's kind of what they're saying here. I really think that you really don't need the extra 15 to bio. It's super weird, unnecessary, band-aidy. I don't think it's necessary at all. 15 should be fine. But maybe this is exactly the change we need. It's much too subtle for me to make a solid call on it. I just have sort of feelings. So, take them for what they're worth with grains of salt or many salts, depending on how you feel. Worker count change displays 2 per patch instead of 3 per patch. So what that means is instead of saying out of 24, it'll say out of 16 per base, which is great because that was such a confusing thing to so many players. I don't know how many players I've had to tell, no, you don't go to 24, you go to 16 because it's sufficient. You can go to 24 because that's maximal, but you go to 16 because that's sufficient. Or you go to 18, especially if you're a Terran. Going to 18 is really nice because you get that 99% efficiency. And if you pull off to build some things, they'll be offline for a while and you'll still be usually at that kind of higher level of efficiency, which is nice. But yeah, so that's great. That's another nice little change where it's sort of like, okay, this is going to make things easier for the new player, which I think is really important. And making the skill floor lower, skill ceiling higher, make that nice and big, easy to learn, hard to master. That's where it's at. And these small little changes, making the game more intuitive, pinging the map for the starting locations, all these little things will help a lot, make StarCraft more intuitive and more fun, especially for the new player, which is great. And finally, there's a graphics change on the Liberator's AG search radius indicator. Really, a very Terran name for an ability, But in any case, it just has a circle instead of the red circle of death. It's just going to be this dotted circle. And that's just for performance issues, so great. No worries. I did like the red circle of death. It was very sort of, gotta get out of here. It was very, fear-inducing. Maybe a little bit more so than it is. So maybe it sort of misrepresents the power of the Liberator in that kind of a position. But yeah, this should be interesting. I think it's going to be visible enough so that way it's not goes by unnoticed. So it's not this sneaky I sneakily set this up. You weren't paying attention. It'll still be there, but performance issues, fixing those is always good. But wait, there's more. Like I said, I haven't done one of these in a while, and you're about to find out why. The Legacy of the Void chat system is absolutely awful. For so many reasons. Think about it here for a second. We're going backwards, and it's really kind of a slap in the face, right? It really is. That's what it feels like. There's a strong emotional sort of we're not going to spend time working on your chat system. Whack! And it hurts. It's painful. Because this is what happened. The chat system that's in, I think, Diablo, Heroes of the Storm, and maybe maybe World of Warcraft as well. In any case, instead of fixing the problems in the chat system, basically, in the socialization of StarCraft 2, making StarCraft 2 a more social game, they made it worse. And they did it, I'm afraid, I hope that I'm wrong, I really do. They did it because they're saving time and development time, and time is money and all of that kind of stuff. If they poured in the Heroes of the Storm chat system, it's less work for them. And all their chat systems are aligned, which feels nice and it's good, you know, because if they fix the chat system in one area, they fix it all in all the games, and it becomes a sufficiency thing. But we're talking about chat commands. Like, we're like all the way back to Battle.net, you know, version 1.0. I have to type /who just to find out who's in the channel. Where before I had this cool channel, I saw all the portraits, everybody in the chat, I could click on things, and now all of those features have been taken away from us, which is like, it never has before, for me at least, a change been made in StarCraft where I'm like, I just wish you didn't change it at all and we went back to the way that it was. I've never felt that way about any change, and I can't help but feel that the new chat is just objectively worse. It's less user friendly, it's less intuitive. It's harder to find people on channels. Like, I'm trying to find people on a channel, and I'm like, oh yeah, how do you do it? I have to explain. I'm gonna have to make a video to put on the YouTube channel to direct people to, so that they can figure out how to get into channels and be more social. I'm gonna have to do that. Like, that's a total step backwards. That should be handled in the game in the most intuitive way possible, so people are encouraged to be social with each other. And it is not, you know, right tool for the right job, right? This kind of a chat might be really good for Diablo 3. Maybe it's great for Heroes of the Storm. Haven't played too much of that game, so I'm not sure. But I really don't think it's the right move for StarCraft. I think that utilizing the big empty space in the middle of the screen for a general chat, being able to open up multiple chats, I mean, I don't even want to consider how annoying it's going to be for tournament organizers to keep hitting /who to see if the player has joined the channel yet. Or make sure, okay, player, when you join the channel, make sure you type something, otherwise I won't even know you're around. Like, that's just the beginning of it, right? There's this tiny little chat window. We can't make it any bigger. We can't move it around. Like I said, we've taken a step backwards. A whole bunch of features that we used to have are now gone, and the only thing that we got out of it was that you get put into a looking for team chat when you join, which is great, which we've been asking for a long time, but there's no reason we couldn't have had that in the other system, or a better system, right? In any case, that's time. That's enough time for that. Let's move on. Gas geysers now contain 2,000 gas. This is to maintain the 2.4 gas to minerals ratio that has been expected in StarCraft 2. We come to expect it. 2.4 is the ratio of minerals to gas per base, and that is the case here again. They fixed the minimap, thank God. That was awful. The Liberator's here. The Liberator is cool. The Liberator is fun, and they're figuring it out. They also adjusted building subgroup priorities, which was huge. Oh my God. Remember that time where the layer and the hive were at the end of your unit selection? So if you put your layer and hive and hatchery in the same control group, and you had your evo chambers in the control groups because you want to keep tabs on them, but if your hatchery died and you only had the layer left, it stopped you from making units because the what do you call them, the evo chambers, because the evo chambers had higher selection priority than your main unit producing structure. What? Okay, so they fixed that. Great. Unfortunately, they created a myriad of other problems because now all the units are mixed into the priority. All units no longer have selection priority above building. So, for example, if you are in the situation where you accidentally add some gateways to your control group, you can't necessarily go right to the end and just shift click, 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 and all the buildings are gone. Never gonna happen again because they're all over the place. If you have, if you put some stargates in there, some robot, you're gonna have to like go in and click out. Oh man, I made this giant mistake, which basically just makes something that's already frustrating more frustrating. And sure, perfect play, if it happens, then that'll never happen to you. If you play perfectly, it'll never happen to you. But I don't think that it's necessary, because we can make the selection priority so that it's units, particularly units with spells, especially queens, high spellcast units like vipers, many spells, right? And then sort of important spells, important single spells like blink, and then like lesser important spells, maybe like charge, things like that. And then the units with no abilities at all. And then do the same thing to the building. So you have the command center and the planetary fortress and all that, and then you have the barracks and the factory starport and all that, and then underneath that you have the engineering bay, the armory, and the tech labs, all that kind of stuff. The tech labs, by the way, are still last or second last. They're awful. They're all the way at the bottom. I think Blizzard just forgot about tech labs, because tech labs are really good upgrade structures, and putting them in a control group is great. Unless they're the last in the selection priority, which is, what they are right now. The tech labs are lower in selection priority than a refinery. Someone explain to me how that makes sense. Anyway, the whole swarm hosts being moved while burrowed thing is gone, so that's great. That was a nice move. That was a little thing. And Roach's burrow movement once again needs to be researched. Wrong. Currently a bug. You can actually, if you get roach speed, you can burrow move just at a really slow rate. And then when you get the burrow move speed or burrow move upgrade, you just burrow move faster. So a little bit of a bug. Abuse it while you can. Enjoy yourselves. Yeah, that should be gone quite soon. Again, same thing with the building priority. Great, the building priority was fixed, but now it's messed up with the unit, so that has to get sorted out. And Protoss, same thing. And there's a lot of different things that we can do with these emotions of abandonment and sadness, helplessness, anger, all these different things. And we can rant and rave, and we can be angry, and we can spend our time, hating and being negative. And it's hard not to do that. I try to remain positive. I try to remain holding on to hope, but over time it becomes more and more difficult. I think that the lack of understanding of the depth of micro, the lack of understanding of the economy change, and this new chat thing have been sort of like a 1, 2, 3 right to my gut. And it's difficult. It's something that's difficult to overcome, but I'm sort of at the point where I've had an amazing 3 years. If Legacy of the Void totally flops, I will have had an amazing 4 years in my life, and I will move on to something else. I hope that that's not the case, but at this point in time, it's mostly out of my hands and mostly out of our hands, unfortunately. And I think that it's better, to enjoy the game, make some cool videos, hopefully that you guys like a lot, and we'll see what happens. If any of the people from Blizzard are watching this video, I really hope that you can somehow work within whatever system is going on to bring more resources to the table for StarCraft. I understand that it's not a product that's particularly effective right now. It doesn't bring you a whole lot of revenue, but it's a chicken and the egg situation. Someone has to get it started from one end. The monetization options have to be in there for it to be an infinity game, for it to be this continuing product that doesn't just get a lot of work for the campaign and then you move over to other games. It can be a strong, amazing esport, I think that Heroes of the Storm is going to be. That all that money getting pushed into the features for Heroes of the Storm and really making to look at a competitive esport. I think that can be done for StarCraft, and the WCS is phenomenal. The WCS is great, and it's an amazing step in the right direction. But in order for StarCraft to be successful, we need resources to be put into the game that will bring back more money and incentivize you all to put more developers, more workers, more UI people into StarCraft and making it a better product. I really hope that you can see the value in StarCraft, because I do, and there are a lot of people, maybe not as many for the other games, but we're really dedicated and we care a lot about StarCraft, and we believe that it can be an amazing game, one of the most amazing games that's ever been made. My name is JaKaTaK, and as always, thank you for watching. If you have an idea for a video you would like me to do, please leave it with any questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, or anything beginning with letter C in the comment section below, and I'll see you again soon.